I thought the title was gonna be a play on Trainspotting, and maybe it still sorta is, but it turns out it's actually pretty clever, considering it made no sense when I first heard it, and still made no sense for most of the movie. It kinda needs a lot of context, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense when they eventually do get to it. And I'd say it's pretty rare that a title actually has any meaning beyond just being a title, just something that kinda relates to the movie. And that just goes to show how much thought and care went into making this thing. And I gotta say, I absolutely loved this thing. It's easily one of my favorite movies of the year. It's one of these movies that I just put on, and a few minutes into it, I already knew I was gonna like it. It's about a guy living in Oakland, and he's got 3 days left on his probation. So he's gotta stay out of trouble, right? Well, do you think everything's gonna go smoothly? Or do you think we're gonna get a movie where things happen? Probably the second option, huh? But what happens and how it happens isn't as straightforward as you might think. And things get pretty intense pretty fast. And the way this thing just switches modes is seamless. It goes from funny and endearing to romantic and sweet, and then all of a sudden intense as hell. And it does it all so well. I mean, the friendship between the two main guys is about as believable as it gets. The comedy is great, I completely bought the romance angle, and when things get real real fast. And you believe that too. And most of that is the writing, and it's written by the two main guys too, David Diggs and Rafael Casal. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were actually best friends in real life. But the acting is great too, and the editing is pretty tight. It's snappy when it needs to be, and it's slower when it needs to be. And there's virtually no room for any nonsense in this movie. Most of the fat is trimmed right off. There's really no bloat. Even the exposition was handled well. There's this one scene that basically explains why he ended up in jail in the first place. It's a flashback, just there to explain what happened. Like, the characters in the movie already know exactly what happened, and going through it all in detail wouldn't feel natural and wouldn't make sense. But a lot of movies still force it in there, because the audience still needs to know. But these people sort of found a pretty clever way to deal with that. And they made it fun and entertaining. And if you gotta do it, that's how you do it. And the movie deals with a lot of heavy stuff too. A lot of real shit. Racism, police brutality, poverty, living in dangerous neighborhoods, trying to fit in, trying to better yourself, and trying to outgrow your environment. And a lot of the times movies that deal with this kind of stuff come across as kinda preachy, or just bummers, or they just try to hit you over the head with the message. And more often than not, I feel like they lack nuance. It's usually pretty one-sided, but the way these guys approached it was a bit different. It was way more nuanced and level-headed, because these things are never black and white. There's a lot of gray in there too. A lot of it. And this movie gets that. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Well, about 95% of it. And I feel like it could have been my favorite movie of the year. But then it sort of dropped the ball. And it's just so frustrating, because I just wish it didn't. I really wish it didn't. But the thing is, I believed every second of this movie. I completely bought it. And then, I think it's the second to last scene comes around, and I just didn't buy it. And boom, just like that, I was pulled out of it. And I just felt disappointed. It was so close to the finish line, and then it just stumbled across. And I think the real problem is, because it was at the very end of the movie, that's the feeling it left me with. Disappointment. And that's a real shame. Now, I didn't hate the scene in itself. I get what they were trying to do. I just think they handled it very poorly. And as a result, I just didn't buy it. I didn't believe what was going on screen. And that's a problem. Now, rationally, I know I loved this movie. I enjoyed the vast majority of it. And one poorly handled scene shouldn't ruin that, or really take that much away from it. But still, when the credits rolled, I felt disappointed, and I can't really do anything about that. All I can say is I wish they'd done it differently. But would I recommend it? Yeah, definitely. And hey, maybe that scene works for you. Maybe you'll come away feeling that that was the best part of the movie. I don't know. So go watch it. Or don't. But you probably should. However, I'm not not your dad.